today, the new big beautiful bill was passed today, and there is a lot of impact specifically around affordable housing, Section 8. So I thought today would be a good time for me just briefly highlight one, how much unknown there is around this, right? Because there is a ton of unknown. And you can probably see where this is from right here. Let me see if I can zoom in really quick for you guys. So this is kind of the big thing that people are talking about when it comes to cutting funding at HUD, which is the Department of Housing and Urban Development. And there's like 44% cut. That's like the number that's happening there. And the biggest one, especially for folks that are Section 8 investors, this essentially tells you exactly what's happening. And it says that right here, the budget empowers states by transforming the current federal dysfunctional rental assistance programs into a state based formula grant, which would allow states to design their own rental assistance programs based on unique needs. But this one is the most important one. The budget institutes a 2-year cap on rental assistance for able bodied adults. And that's going to ensure a majority of the rental assistance funding through states will go to the elderly or disabled, right? So this state-based formula is going to be interesting because this forces states to one rethink about how they provide affordable housing, especially and more than likely they're going to have that funding decreased. Now there's a little earmark here, but I don't know what was the housing grant that was there previously for youth aging out of foster care. But there's a lot of noise here and there's a lot of uncertainty. If you're a type of person that wants to err on the side of conservatism and go for certainty, then go for elderly and disabled, right? You might say, hey, I want to really impact 55 plus or 65 plus seniors. And that's what you're going for. Like for me, I have a home I put in a wheelchair ramp for someone that that was an amputee, right? And that was my focus. Now, right now, this 2-year cap does not necessarily have a cap or exclusion for parents. So you might be a single mom, and I would argue that probably if you are a single mom and you are on a Section 8 voucher and you're trying to go find a job, I mean, chances are it's very, very hard to do that. I'm hoping there's some exclusions for single parents, especially if they're parents of folks that are younger than like 14 or something like that. I feel like I've read that somewhere, but I cannot find that today and I cannot find that in any language. So that's a very, very important item for you to figure out how that works. Now, other big implications for this. This is how I thought about like five. No, let's just keep it to 4 things. Actually, just keep it to 3 things because 1, 2, 3, too many, right? Now, how I think of this is there is a little bit less stability in your Section 8 vouchers right now. So if you are relying on your housing choice vouchers or your tenants that are Section 8 vouchers to stay for 10, 15, 20 years, but you know that they're able-bodied folks, chances are that resident might be at risk of losing their voucher. So even though they probably have another 2 years, you have to think really hard right now about, okay, well, if they do move out or if they do lose that subsidy, what are my steps, right? Do I have to follow an eviction process if they cannot pay? What can I do to start preparing for that day so you don't freak out? Similarly, I would also spend some time on, okay, what are my market rents right now? And looking at if I had to go rent this unit out on the market for market rent, what does my unit look like? So if you had a Section 8 property that was cash flowing right now, what I would consider is don't pocket any of that cash flow. Instead, put it in maintenance, especially if you know that you might need to do more rehab to get that property to achieve whatever market rents are out there. Okay. Now, on the other side, if you are underwriting deals right now and you're analyzing deals and you've been told, hey, in general, sometimes Section 8 residents have a lower turnover. So my vacancy expenses are higher. I mean, I would bump that up to at least 5% vacancy right now, assuming someone moves out every 2 years. I would not be ultra aggressive on my vacancy assumptions unless you know you might be renting out to an elderly disabled person because you have your home specifically outfitted to help the elderly or disabled, right? Maybe you have a wheelchair ramp as an example. So that's what I'm thinking about, right? So because of your reduced voucher stability, Learn to pocket all your cash flow right now so that you can potentially address larger rehabs down the line in case people get kicked out because of this new 2 year time limit on rental assistance for able-bodied adults, right? And then the secondary, learn to update your underwriting for Section 8 vouchers so that your vacancy assumptions are higher than they might have would have been if they were previously. That's what I would do. Second, this is going to differ state by state. There are some states that might be very heavy on housing and they might allocate a huge amount of money. So you can look at some states right now that are allocating a huge amount of the state budget towards affordable housing. I think I've seen like Massachusetts is one of the examples where they allocate a lot more money from the state budget towards affordable housing. Section 8 might be okay there, right? But there's no guarantees. And this is the part where you have to get really educated about, okay, what has been that state's position on affordable housing? And when there was ever a deficiency or there was a deficit when it comes to funding housing, did that state step in? So now when you are looking at potential markets that you are considering to invest in specifically for Section 8, I would do that diligence even deeper. It's not just about crime. It's not just about the Section 8 rents. Now you need to figure out, okay, what has been the history? Because now there's political risk on your end for your rental properties. All right. And if you don't get the warm and fuzzy feeling that that state is going to do whatever is necessary to house their residents, be cautious. Similar, if you already have rentals, you should be talking to your public housing authorities right now to figure out what are they thinking about, right? Because this discretionary budget has been out since May. Obviously, they were probably just on a holding pattern until they figure out whether or not it's going to pass. But now that it's passed and there's this 2 year time limit for rental assistance for single adults, like non-disabled, like you're gonna have some implications. So don't think it's not gonna affect you. I don't think now our state's gonna completely cut funding. Chances maybe not, but I think it's gonna be really, really hard for people that are on a wait list now to ever get off the wait list, especially if there's no budget. That's the unfortunate truth. And hey, this forces the government to be more efficient, to be more thoughtful with their time. So it could be a good or a bad thing. Take it for what you will. I'm just here to present the facts. I don't care about the politics. I'm here to understand what's been passed, what's the sandbox that we're playing in, and how do you act accordingly. We're not playing any victims. This is what's been dealt to us. So let's figure out how to best solve this. All right. Now, if your tenants and you know that they are able-bodied adults and they're only going to get 2 years of help on this model, I have no idea whether or not that time starts running now when the bill is passed, or maybe it goes and started already. So this is a good time for you to help your resident, especially if you know more about them, to help them find a job. Don't wait for them to struggle. I know this sounds like you're going above and beyond as a landlord, but I really feel like the people that listen to this podcast, the Affordable Housing Real Estate Investing podcast, you did this because you want to help. You wanted to help people, your time, your energy, and resources. So give them a little nudge because they might not even know that this is coming their way, right? Unless their caseworker is so on top of communicating these updates, they might not know. So communicate. Now, for the multifamily side, here's how I'm thinking about it. If you have projects that are on based on low income housing tax credits, right? And they were based off of project based vouchers, which is a form of Section 8 vouchers, but that stays with the unit, not with the resident, right? So Section 8 vouchers is when that subsidy stays with the tenant. So if they move from one house to another, that voucher follows them. Project based vouchers, they stay with the unit. So when that person moves out of that unit, someone else can move into that unit and enjoy the same subsidy. However, if the state decide to pull or cut funding on project-based vouchers, then now all of a sudden it creates a huge revenue gap for those developers, especially if they're managing especially if they're managing affordable units that are dependent on those vouchers. Now, I hope that they don't do it because then that might put a lot of projects at risk of delinquency, which I don't think that. So that's why I don't think that's going to happen, because if the states pull all the funding for those projects on LIHTC, then they know all the folks that used to invest in tax credits are going to be out on the street with their investments. And that's typically never a good position to put tax credit investors in. So I think that angle is too far fetched. I don't think that angle is going to happen. Again, I don't have a crystal ball. But if you think about the implications on what that means and for people's faith in investing in tax credits, I don't think that's going to happen. Now, going forward, though, your lenders might apply harsher underwriting rules or thoughts, especially on affordable housing projects, right? Especially if they depend on federal rent subsidies, because they're going to probably assume that it's no longer there. So that's how I'm thinking about it, right? On the Section 8 side, if you're a single family investor, I would instantly today think about, hey, I'm going to have increased turnover. All the cash flow I'm getting right now, I'm going to bank it. I'm not going to pocket it, because there's a big chance that I'm going to have to use that cash flow to renovate the property and get it back from market rents or market rate rents, whatever you want to call it. What I would do today is start talking to my housing authority. Hey, have you guys thought about what you might do, right? What have you heard from your state? And go deeper into the state to see what type of affordable housing legislation have they passed in the form of subsidizing and helping affordable housing. That's something you can do right now. That's something you can do today. And this is going to be really important, because that will drive whether or not you invest anymore in a specific state or pull out completely. This is a risk. And my thought process has always been about, how do I de-risk risk, right? How do I mitigate the risk across the portfolio? And right now, it might not be the best time for you to double down on a state unless you see very clear signs that that state is going to keep funding housing choice vouchers no matter what. All right. But you do know that subsidies for the elderly and disabled are still going to be there. So for me, I never try to push. I mean, when you do an affordable housing, it's a steep enough hill already. I'm not going to try to make that hill any steeper. So if I can just focus on elderly, senior living, or housing for disabled folks, I mean, I would do that, right? Assuming that you're still following fair housing laws, et cetera, right? Please make sure you're following fair housing laws. But on the development side, numbers going to get harder, especially depending on rent subsidies. However, I don't think they might not prioritize rent subsidies for new LIHTC projects, but I find it really hard to believe that they're going to put at risk, especially all of the tax credit investors that have invested in tax credits to build affordable housing. I really highly doubt they're going to put those projects at risk, because if those all go into delinquency, those all go to default, you create tremendous distrust in the value of federal tax credits, because those are equity investors in those deals. So I don't believe that's going to happen. So that's my initial gut reaction here. I think as you see more and more news pop up by different agencies, different states, different public housing authorities, you're going to get better clarity. And I'm going to do my best to try to bring someone from HUD. I'm going to try to bring someone from the public housing authorities to bring them along and ask them, hey, how are you thinking about this new change of cuts to HUD funding? And I'll share a little bit with you all what they're thinking. And if you have questions on what you would want me to ask folks, especially if the housing authorities or states, let me know what they are in the comments, so that when I reach out to people, I can actually say that, hey, this is our community. These are the folks that care about affordable housing. They want to make an impact with their time, the energy, and resources. Great. You're cutting out all the bureaucratic bloat. Awesome. What does that mean? How do we take action on it and continue to help people in affordable housing? All right. Send me those questions. And I hope this was helpful, everybody. I know this was like really, really hard, but look, investing is always risky. This is not investment advice. I'm not soliciting any investments on this call. But what you're going to have to do is figure out, okay, now that there's going to be more turnover for Section 8 vouchers, what happens to my rental assumptions? If I need to turn this into a market rate investment, I need to start banking all my cash flow, if I have cash flow, into a maintenance account, into a capex account, so that I know I need to renovate the property to get it back to market rent, so that I am not in a negative cash flow position. I need to lower my I need to increase my vacancy expenses because I've assumed that people are going to move out more often. All right. Or you might make a decision strategically to say, I'm going to focus on just elderly and disabled going forward. I want to make sure I'm outfitting my homes and residents for those folks with rental subsidies still so that they can have a home no matter what. I mean, I know people that focus purely, just specifically on affordable housing for seniors, and that's great. But if you see that that's where what's going to get funded, you might make the same decision, right? Obviously, you got to follow fair housing laws. Don't forget. And again, I hope this is helpful for everybody. I know there's a lot of noise out there right now about affordable housing and all the stuff getting cut, but honestly, the state still needs to decide what's going to happen. So again, don't double down on a state right now. I think that's not wise unless you see very, very strong subsidies from a state that has shown that they can pull money from the state budget to fund some of the affordable housing initiatives that they have. I I I mean, I can only speak to Massachusetts because I've seen what they have issued before in that state, but that doesn't mean that, hey, maybe some of that money was dependent on HUD. I don't know. Read into the details. Don't read the headlines now. Read into the details because this is what's going to drive the successful. This is what's going to separate the successful investors versus the unsuccessful ones. You got to get into the details now. You have to do more work. Everything is harder, but that doesn't mean you can't be successful. And that's why we're in this community together. All right. Again, if you have questions on what you would want me to ask housing authorities, state officials, or even if I can get someone on HUD onto this podcast, let me know what they are and I'll try to get the answers for you. All right. Have an amazing July 4th, everybody. I hope you all got to see some fireworks. I'm still waiting for the fireworks on the West Coast, but happy 4th of July. I hope you all get to spend some quality time with your family and friends today because that's what life is all about. And thank you so much for caring about affordable housing. Without people like all of you, I would have never had the home I grew up in. So I appreciate you all giving me the time, the flexibility, the creativity to go out there, try to get answers for you all, but also figure out how do I take something that's so complex, like a big, beautiful bill, and how do I take all the verbiage? How do I focus on just the section that matters to you? And you guys can see what that budget looks like. So I can try to link it down below, but read it yourself. Don't be headline readers. Read into the details, talk to your state officials, and look for signs so you can pick your market. All right. Have an amazing day. I'll see y'all tomorrow for day. Wow. It's a lot of days. Have a good one. Talk to you tomorrow.